1,000-foot-long cargo ship hits a key bridge in Maryland.
Emergency crews say at least 20 people are believed to be in the water. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alagaw Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Philippines following the latest Chinese aggression in the West Philippine Sea.
Around 3 million doses of pentavalent vaccine for pertussis are set to arrive in the Philippines soon.
Israel continues the bombardment of the Gaza Strip despite UNSC's call for a ceasefire.
Soyuz MS-25 safely docks into the International Space Station.
And music mogul Sean Diddy Combs' properties have been raided by authorities for sex trafficking investigation.
Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Nevada,
España,
Paris, France,
United Kingdom,
Washington, D.C.,
London Bureau, Papua New Guinea,
in New York,
Washington, D.C.
Mata ng Agila,
Mata ng Agila.
Mata ng
Mata ng Agila International.
Trusted, connected, on point.
India has reaffirmed its support for the Philippines after the latest Chinese aggression in the West Philippine Sea. Department of Foreign Affairs Chief Enrique Manalo hosted India External Affairs Minister Subramanyam Jaishankar for a bilateral meeting. The Indian minister said that India has expressed its support for the Philippines on defending its sovereign rights. Jaishankar stressed the adherence to rules-based order, especially the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. Secretary Manalo noted that there are more than 20 nations and states that have declared their support for the Philippines and adherence to international laws about China's dangerous maneuvers. The Philippines remained firm on the effect of the 2016 arbitral awards despite China's dismissal of the ruling.
The arbitral award is final and binding, and this has been reaffirmed by the international community. We have consistently reasserted our rights in accordance with international law insofar as the issues in the South China Sea or West Philippine Sea are concerned.
Meanwhile, the two foreign ministers have agreed to reinforce the maritime and defense cooperation between Philippines and India. Manalo noted that there will be a maritime dialogue between the two nations to discuss all possible areas of cooperation to achieve open and peaceful Indo-Pacific.
It is not necessarily linked to a particular situation, but it's natural today that two countries whose trust and comfort is growing so rapidly, that we would look at various new areas of cooperation, and certainly defense and security is one of them.
The Philippines welcomed the adoption of a United Nations Security Council resolution declaring an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. The Department of Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo highlighted that the humanitarian crisis demands swift and unified action from the international community. The DFA chief added that the implementation of the said measure would alleviate the suffering of innocent civilians caught in the crossfire.
Authorities declared a measles outbreak in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, or BARM. The Department of Health, or DOH, said the total number of measles cases in the country since September 2023 has reached 2,600. More than 1,400 cases were recorded in Lanao del Sur, Maguindanao del Norte, and Sulu. The DOH has also declared a blue alert, and vaccinations will start for children, starting with those aged 6 months. The health agency also reminded that measles vaccines are free. Health experts say measles is a highly contagious disease caused by a virus. It spreads easily when an infected person breathes, coughs, or sneezes. It can cause severe disease, complications, and even death among children.
The Department of Health, or DOH, announced that about 3 million doses of pentavalent vaccine for pertussis will arrive soon. Pentavalent vaccines protect not only against pertussis, but also against diphtheria, tetanus, hepatitis B, and Haemophilus influenza type B. The health agency added that 5 million doses of measles and rubella will also arrive in the Philippines. The DOH ordered the speedy dispatch of 1 million doses for the non-selective immunization activity conducted in some areas in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, where a measles outbreak was reported.
The Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, has allotted over 1 billion pesos for the conservation and restoration of Gabaldon buildings and other heritage school buildings in the Philippines under DepEd. In a news release, the DBM has green-lighted a 1.34 or 1.134 billion pesos, a special allotment release order or SARO for the DepEd to restore 654 classrooms and 83 heritage schools nationwide. The SARO encompasses the restoration of Gabaldon schoolhouses and its necessary improvement needs. It also complies with Republic Act 11194 or the Gabaldon School Buildings Conservation Act, which states that heritage school buildings, including Gabaldon school buildings, must be preserved and restored as a part of the country's cultural conservation efforts. Gabaldons are heritage school buildings that were constructed during the colonial period of the United States, whose architecture draws inspiration from traditional nipa hut and stone house designs. Currently, there are 2,045 Gabaldon schoolhouses across the Philippines. Gabaldon heritage school buildings were named after lawmaker Isauro Gabaldon, who enabled 1 million pesos to be provided for the construction of school buildings in every municipality in the country through the Gabaldon Act of 1907 and RA 1801, which he authored.
The Department of Agriculture, or DA, has officially lifted the ban on the importation of domestic and wild poultry from Iowa and Minnesota into the Philippines. Last year, Agriculture Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel Jr. had implemented the ban in response to an avian influenza outbreak in these two U.S. states, aiming to safeguard against the potential spread of the virus. He has now authorized the importation of live poultry, poultry products, and related byproducts, effective immediately, unless otherwise rescinded by the DA. This decision comes following a thorough review of the official report from the U.S. submitted to the World Organization of Animal Health, confirming that all counties in Iowa and Minnesota have been free of avian influenza cases since January 10, 2024.
The Bureau of Immigration deported 2 Japanese nationals tagged as members of the notorious Luffy gang. Sugano Kazushi and Shimoeda Saito were sent back to Japan for being undesirable aliens after the Japanese government tagged them as fugitives from justice. The Tokyo Summary Court issued a warrant of arrest for the 2, alleging they are part of the Luffy gang, a large-scale telecommunications fraud group. Sugano and Shimoeda have been hiding in the Philippines since 2019. A manhunt was conducted against them and their cohorts after receiving official communication from the Japanese government in February of 2023 regarding their criminal status.
Coming up, multiple countries accuse China of cyber espionage. Israel ignores the UNSC ceasefire resolution. And a judge dismisses a lawsuit filed by X. Stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
naging tapatan ng mga B-pranksters ng "Oh no, it's BO, biro only." Wala namang kuprak sa akin dito, no? Ha? Wala ba? Wala ba camera dito? Tingnan mo na. Kung ikaw ay may hippopotamonstrosa script aliophobia. O, ito para maiba lang bago tayo mag-ganon. Spell hippopotamonstrosa script aliophobia. Sige, 30,000 pesos.
Direk, pwede po ba pabalang po yung screen?
And this is Not a Game! Agad-agad!
Let's live together. Sunday 25.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. The United Kingdom said it will impose sanctions on Beijing following cyber attacks done by a Chinese firm. Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden claimed that the two Chinese nationals and the Wuhan Xiaoruji Science and Technology Company were behind the attacks. The British top official argued that the said entities have been working for the China state-affiliated cyber espionage group, the Advanced Persistent Threat Group, or APT-31. Dowden noted that the cyber attacks have been aimed to access details of the members of parliament critics of Beijing as well as the data of its voters. Under the imposed sanctions, China will face asset freezes, travel bans, and the like. Between August 2021 and October 2022, the UK Electoral Commission suffered from a cyber attack. Databases containing people's names and addresses were accessed and sensitive emails from the poll body's control systems.
New Zealand joins the United States and the United Kingdom in accusing China of cyber attacks. The Director General of New Zealand's Government Communication Security Bureau says their analysis of the cyber attack points out to the App 40 group. Washington, London, and Wellington governments say the App 40 is part of state-sponsored Chinese hackers.
This enabled us to confidently link the actor to the People's Republic of China, specifically the Ministry of State Security. This link has been reinforced by analysis from international partners of similar events in their own jurisdictions.
Meanwhile, China has hit back at New Zealand, the United States, and the United Kingdom for sanctions on espionage hacks. Beijing claimed that Washington encouraged the Five Eyes Alliance, the world's largest intelligence organization, to compile and disseminate false information about threats from Chinese hackers.
美国出于地缘政治目的，鼓动其主导的世界上最大的情报组织五眼联盟，编凑、散布各种中国黑客威胁的虚假信息。现在又伙同英国，大肆的炒作所谓的中国网络攻击，甚至发起对华的无理单边制裁。中方对此坚决反对，已向美及相关方提出了严正交涉。 将采取必要措施，维护中方的合法权益。
Media reports say the United States and Japan will revise their signed 1960 Defense Security Treaty. Sources who have direct knowledge of the plans say United States President Joe Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida will announce plans to reorganize the U.S. armed forces in Japan. Washington and Tokyo's reorganization of command structure targets to develop the operational plans and training of American and Japanese defense forces at the summit in Washington, D.C. on April 10. To date, there are about 54,000 United States military personnel in Japan. Sources said the U.S. armed forces in Japan Japan have a limited role, which includes coordinating the status of forces agreement. But with the restructuring, Washington plans to appoint a 4-star commander to oversee its forces in Japan. Kishida also wants to establish a joint command headquarters before the end of March 2025. Reports claim Tokyo has serious concern over China and North Korea's growing military power in the Asia-Pacific region.
Taiwan has conducted missile drills as part of their air defense test, deploying Patriot missiles and anti-craft artillery systems and ramping up training amid Chinese military, quote, intrusions, unquote, around the island. In a statement, Taiwan's Air Force said they conducted the exercise on Monday morning, elaborating that they included their domestically made Skybow and U.S.-made Patriot surface-to-air missiles alongside the Army and Navy units. It expressed that the aim of the drills was to verify command and control of joint air defense operations among the branches of the military, adding, and I quote, "In the face of frequent intrusions, BTPLA aircraft and vessels into the airspace and waters surrounding Taiwan, the Air Force will continue to enhance training intensity to respond to potential threats." Last week, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense confirmed that 36 Chinese military aircraft and 6 naval ships have been detected hovering and operating around the island. China has been exerting more military pressure in Taiwan after President Tsai Ing-wen's election in 2016 and after Vice President Lai Ching-te, who is regarded as a, quote, dangerous separatist, unquote, by China, got elected earlier in 2024.
Japan has greenlit the export of new fighter jets developed in collaboration with the UK and Italy, marking a departure from its traditionally pacifist stance. The Japanese government had previously pledged to increase military expenditure twofold by 2027 due to the apparent threats from China and North Korea. Amid this development, they have relaxed their arms export regulations to permit the sale of advanced fighter jets to nations with whom they have defense agreements, provided there are no active conflicts in those regions. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida emphasized the importance of allowing such exports to maintain Tokyo's credibility as a reliable partner in future international defense initiatives. Nevertheless, Defense Minister Minoru Kihara affirmed that Japan would adhere to rigorous decision-making processes for the arms exports, reiterating Japan's commitment to its pacifist principles.
The Ukrainian military said that it hit 2 large Russian landing ships on the occupied Crimean Peninsula, as well as other infrastructure the Russian Navy is using across the Black Sea. Moscow-installed official reported the major Ukrainian air attack and said that air defenses had shot down more than 10 missiles over the Crimean port of Sevastopol. Russian-appointed governor of Sevastopol, Mikhail Razvozayev, said it was the most massive attack in recent times. Governor Razvozayev added that a 65-year-old man was killed and 4 people were injured. Ukraine now claims to have destroyed around a third of Russia's Black Sea fleet since Russia's invasion last 2022.
Simon Harris is set to make history as Ireland's youngest prime minister, emerging victorious in the Fine Gael party leadership race with no contenders challenging his ascent.
It's the absolute honour of my life to formally be here with you today in Athlone to accept the leadership of this great party.
The vacancy in leadership arose following the unexpected resignation of Leo Varadkar, citing personal and political motivations just last week. Renowned for his dynamism and drive, Harris embodies the epitome of a young man in a hurry, poised to assume the mantle of Ireland's first TikTok Dawi Search or Dawi Siege, as he is known to have an active social media presence. With a vision firmly rooted in tradition yet forward-thinking, he has unveiled his agenda, charting a course for his Fine Gael party to reaffirm its foundational principles.
Fine Gael will always stand as a proudly pro-European party, and we will always be a party that will work with everybody across this island of Ireland to embed peace and prosperity and to make sure we harness the untapped potential of the all-island economy.
These include championing policies that ensure fair wages, bolstering law enforcement, and providing unwavering support to Ireland's agricultural sector. Formalizing his position awaits until April 9th, when the Irish Parliament reconvenes after its recess.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has canceled an Israeli delegation's planned visit to Washington. The two countries were to discuss U.S. concerns over a possible offensive in Rafah. Thomas I. Likeness tells us what caused the cancellation.
Netanyahu pulled the plug on the meeting Monday after the U.S. abstained on a UN Security Council resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Israel wanted the U.S. to veto the resolution, which ultimately passed. Netanyahu says the abstention is a clear retreat from the consistent position of the United States. But U.S. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby says that's not the case.
Our vote does not, I repeat, does not represent a shift in our policy. We've been very clear, we've been very consistent in our support for a ceasefire as part of a hostage deal.
Kirby says the resolution did have some elements the U.S. could support, but he says it didn't go far enough.
We wanted to get to a place where we could support this resolution, but because the final text does not have key language that we think is essential, such as condemning Hamas, we couldn't support it.
Netanyahu says failing to veto the resolution has hurt Israel's war effort and attempts to release the hostages. The United States has backed Israel with both military and diplomatic support. But it has voiced frustration with Netanyahu as the civilian death toll in Gaza mounts. While the delegation's trip has been canceled, Kirby says a separate visit by Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, is proceeding.
We certainly look forward to having those discussions with him and making it clear to the defense minister that the United States continues to stand with Israel as they fight Hamas and will continue to work with might and main to get those hostages back with their families where they belong.
Kirby reiterated his view that a major ground offensive in Rafah would be a major mistake. As for a ceasefire, it looks like any truce agreement will likely have to be brokered by Qatar during meetings in Doha. Thomas I. Likeness from Atanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Israel continues in its assault on Gaza, vowing to achieve all military objectives, ignoring the UN Security Council's call for a ceasefire. On March 25th, the UNSC voted 14 in favor, none against, demanding an immediate cessation of hostilities in Gaza. In the war-torn city, Palestinians cautiously hoped the resolution would ease tensions, even as Israeli airstrikes continued in Rafah city and other Gaza areas overnight.
طبعا هذا القرار قرار لمصلحة الشعب الفلسطيني وإن شاء الله هذا القرار يطبق وتلتزم إسرائيل بهذا القرار وتلتزم بالقانون الدولي والقانون الدولي الإنساني.
However, fatalities in Rafah city alone have already climbed to 18 today, including 9 children, putting the total Palestinians killed in the war to more than 32,000. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also reaffirmed his commitment to the military campaign, pledging to dismantle the militant group Hamas entirely and secure the release of Israeli captives.
Bassirou Diomaye Faye is set to become the next president of Senegal and the youngest elected leader in Africa.
En m'élisant président de la République, le peuple sénégalais a fait le choix de la rupture pour donner corps à l'immense espoir suscité par notre projet de société, que notre projet de société a suscité et donner corps à ses aspirations. Je m'engage à gouverner avec humilité, dans la transparence, à combattre la corruption dans toutes les échelles, à toutes les échelles. Je m'engage à me consacrer pleinement à la refondation de nos institutions et au renforcement des fondements de notre vivre ensemble.
Preliminary results showed Faye securing around 53.7% of the vote, with his closest rival, former Senegalese Prime Minister Amadou Ba, trailing behind at 36.2%, based on data from 90% of polling stations. Former Prime Minister Ba gracefully conceded defeat to Faye upon the announcement of the results.
Je réitère mes félicitations au président Diomaye Faye. Je lui souhaite réussite et succès à la tête de notre pays. Puisse Dieu l'accompagner dans la réalisation de sa mission pour la grandeur de notre nation et le bien-être de nos populations.
Meanwhile, outgoing President Macky Sall has also sent his regards to the president-elect, pledging a seamless transition of power to his duly elected successor. The anticipation is high as many look to fight to usher in a period of stability and economic prosperity for Senegal, particularly as the nation gears up for its imminent entry into oil and gas production later this year.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill that bars children aged under 14 from social media platforms. The said bill requires a 14 to 15-year-old child to get parental consent before the minor can create an account. The measure also requires social media platforms to terminate the accounts of people under 14 and those of people under 16 who do not have parental consent. It requires them to use a third-party verification system to screen out those who are underage. The new law will take effect on January 1, 2025. Supporters of the bill say the measure will protect their children from online risks to their mental health. Critics argue the bill violates the United States Constitution's First Amendment's protections for free speech and that parents, not the government, should make decisions about the online presence of their children of all ages. But Governor DeSantis defended the bill, insisting the legislation gives parents a greater ability to protect their children.
El Salvador President Nayib Bukele has deployed around 6,000 soldiers and police officers in San Salvador streets in a crackdown on gang violence. In March 2022, Bukele launched a war on gangs, declaring a state of emergency to suspend the need for arrest warrants. El Salvador's latest move came after 2 people were killed in the country's north. 2 suspects from the Sorganos faction of the 18th Street gang had been captured. President Bukele was re-elected in February and is credited for dipping homicide rates in 3 decades. Ecuadorian and Argentinian crime authorities allowed Bukele's tactics. Rights activists, however, criticize Bukele's move as they argue that innocent lives have been claimed in the anti-crime campaign.
An Ecuadorian mayor has been found shot to death as the South American country approaches its 3rd month of a state of emergency. The government declared the emergency to crack down on soaring gang violence. Ralph Coronel reports.
27-year-old Bridget Garcia, mayor of coastal San Vicente, was found dead along with municipality's communications director, Jairo Loor. Police say they discovered the bodies of the pair during the early hours of Sunday morning inside a vehicle. The 2 had been shot. Later investigators said the shots had been fired from inside the vehicle. Investigators are still analyzing the route taken by the car, which had been rented. In January, President Daniel Noboa imposed a state of emergency and declared the country in a state of war against gangs. Since then, the military has been deployed in the streets and taken control of the country's prisons, where a string of gang riots in recent years has left some 460 people killed. The government claims that its so-called Phoenix Plan has been successful at reducing the country's soaring violence. But several violent episodes were reported over the weekend, including the ambush of an army patrol in a province on the Colombian border. 1 soldier died and 3 others were wounded in the incident. Ralph Cornell from Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro officially registers his candidacy for the July elections. This while the opposition remained blocked from signing up its candidate with just hours before the deadline. Ken Cruz reports.
61-year-old Nicolas Maduro formalizes his 3rd-term run for the presidency with great fanfare. Thousands turn out to rally behind him and the ruling United Socialist Party of Venezuela. Carrying an illustration of his revolutionary mentor Hugo Chavez, Maduro says he was moved by so much generosity and recognition on the part of the people for him. A worker from the neighborhoods of Caracas, the former bus driver is seeking to extend his 11 years in power by another 6-year term. This amid rising concerns over his slide into full-blown authoritarianism and crackdown on the opposition. In a show of force, Maduro calls thousands of supporters to rally behind him. Many of those who answered the call wore red and chanted his name. Opinion polls, however, show that Maduro is not the favorite. Venezuelans will vote on July 28 after a grim decade marked by an economic crisis that has pushed millions to flee the country. Opposition leader Maria Corina Machado won a primary vote last year. Some surveys put her support at about 72%. However, 56-year-old Machado was banned from public office for 15 years by courts loyal to Maduro. She was charged with corruption widely dismissed as spurious and for supporting Western sanctions against less kept campaigning. On Friday, she tapped an 80-year-old university professor, Corina Yoris, as her stand-in. Ken Cruz from Mindanao Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A federal judge dismissed a lawsuit brought by Elon Musk's ex against the Center for Countering Digital Hate, or CCDH. The latter claimed that hate speech had risen on the platform since Musk took over. In response, X accused the CCDH of taking unlawful steps to access its data. But District Judge Charles Breyer threw out X's complaints, ruling that it was evident that Musk's social platform did not like criticism. Breyer said that the case is about punishing the defendants or the CCDH for their speech. X is now planning to appeal.
Truth Social begins trading on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange this Tuesday. Trump media debuts with a stock price near $50 with a market value of about $6.8 billion. Some traders and investors ask themselves if the stock is too pricey and potentially too volatile. But analysts say would-be buyers of Truth Social are either trying to support former United States President Donald Trump or aiming to cash in on the mania. Trump media has yet to disclose Truth Social's user numbers since the company is now public. Research firm SimilarWeb estimates that Truth Social had roughly 5 million active mobile and web users in February, below TikTok's more than 2 billion users and Facebook's 3 billion users. Truth Social launched in February 2022, 1 year after Trump was banned from X and Facebook due to the January 6 riot at the U.S. Capitol. Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk reinstated Trump in Facebook and X, but Trump stuck with Truth Social.
Coming right up, a landslide buries a village in Indonesia. A main bridge in Maryland collapses, resulting in multiple casualties. And Russia's Soyuz spacecraft successfully lands. We will be right back after a short break. Don't go away.
It's good to be back! Welcome to Season 3 ng Magandang Araw!
Magandang araw, magandang araw, magandang araw, magandang araw.
Sa una nating episode, nandito tayo sa Anilao, Batangas.
Magandang araw, magandang araw.
Excited ako dahil makakasama natin ang ating first guest.
Akala nyo, walang bayad dito. Ha? I did not even have to sing or dance. Papakainin lang niya ako ng cheesecake mamaya.
Cheesecake lang.
Ganun lang ang kapalit.
Sasama niya tayo sa kanyang paboritong hobby.
Magandang araw, magandang araw, magandang araw, magandang araw, magandang araw, magandang araw.
Wala pa nag-i-interview sa akin, ha? Kaya nga! Wala pa, magdahan-dahan ka sa mga tanong mo, ha? Baka ma-eject ka dyan sa upuan mo.
Kaya, tara na!
Good night!
Magandang araw, magandang araw, magandang araw. Let's Sa Net 25.
Milyong pasasalamat sa inyo mga ka-Net25 dahil umabot ng 1 milyon ang mga subscriber ng Net25 YouTube channel. Let's subscribe together here on Net25.
At least 9 Indonesians are reported missing after a landslide and flooding hit their village on Java Island. Officials say more than 200 people have been evacuated. EJ Gonzalez has more details.
Sibenda village in West Java province became inundated just before midnight on Sunday evening. Hours of torrential rain fell while many villagers slept. Officials say at least 9 people are not accounted for. 2 more suffered injuries and had to be taken to a clinic. Rescuers have arrived in the isolated village to search for the missing victims. A village hall and schools have been turned into temporary shelters after dozens of houses sustained damage. About 250 locals have been evacuated. Indonesia is prone to landslides during the rainy season. The problem has been aggravated in some places by deforestation, with prolonged torrential rain causing flooding in some areas of the country. EJ Gonzalez from Mindanao, Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A Japanese pharmaceutical company has initiated an investigation following a death and numerous hospitalizations possibly associated with its red yeast rice pills. At least 76 individuals were reportedly admitted to hospitals after consuming the Bani Kayedi fermented rice products manufactured by Kobayashi Pharmaceutical. The company disclosed the incident subsequent to issuing a voluntary recall of 5 of its products last week. Customers were urged to discontinue the use of these pills, which were marketed as supplements for lowering cholesterol levels. Kobayashi has indicated suspicion that the issue could stem from unidentified toxic substances present in the molds utilized during the production process. Bani Kayedi involves the fermentation of rice with Monascus purpureus, a type of reddish-purple mold.
A report by a children's aid group says 2 out of 5 children in Yemen are not going to school. The charity Save the Children says that figure underlines how precarious life is in the Arabian Peninsula's poorest country. David Oria reports.
The report notes that nearly a decade into Yemen's brutal war, some 4.5 million of its children are not attending school. The group says 1/3 of families surveyed in Yemen have at least one child who has dropped out of school in the past 2 years despite the UN-brokered truce. The country has been relatively calm since the April 22 ceasefire. Mohamed Mana, Save the Children's interim county director in Yemen, says the findings are a wake-up call. The report says 14% of families interviewed by the aid group points to insecurity as the reason behind their children dropping out. But a larger majority, some 44%, cited economic reasons. Charity says without immediate intervention, an entire generation risks being left behind. David Oria from Mindanao International, trusted, connected, on point.
British farmers drove their tractors outside the UK Parliament in central London on Monday. They are protesting post-Brexit trade deals, which they say threatens food production. Jeff Sanidad gives us the report.
About 100 tractors from around the United Kingdom converged in Westminster, where they blare their horns and display slogans including "Support British Farmers" and "Brexit is a disaster." Organizer Elise Webster of Save British Farming says they are concerned about imports. Farmers are also upset with the policy in England of paying farmers to create habitats for environmental reasons. They say that takes land out of food production. Several demonstrations have taken place sporadically in recent months against the post-Brexit agricultural policy of the Conservative government, which has been in power for 14 years. British agriculture provides around 60% of the food consumed in the UK. But farmers fear this share is falling. They also say they are suffering from rising costs and shortage of seasonal workers, many of whom are foreign and whose recruitment is more difficult since Brexit. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has promised to support UK farmers. He told the National Farming Union Conference last month that the nation's food security is a vital part of national security. The Tories lag well behind the main opposition Labour Party in opinion polls as a general election looms later this year. Jeff Sanidad for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Defendants accused of varying degrees of involvement in the murder of a Cameroonian journalist arrive at a military court in the capital of Yaoundé. This on day one of the trial. Arlene Ocampo has more.
Lawyers representing clients in the case speak to the media on trial day one of the murder case of slain Cameroonian journalist Martinez Zogo. Lawyer for Zogo's family, Calvin Job, speaks to the media.
Today in this trial, the first day of the trial, we saw that the lawyer of the people who are accused in this procedure, they are not want to really discuss about the real facts. The fact that bring us in front of this court.
Jacques Mabunai, lawyer for the accused Lieutenant Colonel Justin Danwe, says they are not worried. Mabunai says the president has let them say what they wanted to say. 17 people, including a top businessman and an ex-Secret Service chief, stand trial in Cameroon over the killing of popular journalist Zogo. The badly mutilated corpse of Zogo, also known as Martinez, was found a few days after his abduction in front of a police station outside the capital, Yaoundé, on January 17, 2023. The 50-year-old radio reporter was an outspoken critic of alleged corruption and cronyism in the Central African nation. He would often single out government officials by name. International NGOs say the regime of President Paul Biya, who has ruled with an iron fist for more than 41 years, routinely curtails opposition. Arlene Ocampo from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A 1,000-foot-long cargo ship hit the Batapsco in Maryland, causing it to collapse. Emergency crews said at least 20 people are believed to be in the water. Authorities disclosed that the ship hoisted a Singapore flag and left the Baltimore port for an hour before the collision. Rescuer workers in fire boats and diving suits responded to the scene to pull out stranded people. The Maryland Transportation Authority announced that all lanes are closed in both directions in Interstate 695. Meanwhile, multiple agencies are on the scene to assess the damage while investigating the cause of the incident.
A group of relatives searching for some of Mexico's roughly 100,000 missing persons says it has found about 24 bags containing human remains. They made the grisly discovery on the weekend in a clandestine cemetery. Rosel Feria tells us more.
The Guerreros Buscadores collective says it found the bones and other charred remains Sunday at a ranch in El Salto in the western state of Jalisco. After arriving at the site accompanied by National Guard personnel, the group discovered a smoking pit oven and noticed a foul stench. There has been no immediate comment from the state prosecutor's office, which is expected to inspect the site. Collective searching for missing persons say that drug trafficking cartels and other organized crime gangs use brick and other ovens to incinerate their victims and leave no trace. Most of Mexico's missing persons have vanished since the country launched a major offensive against the cartels in 2006. Jalisco is the scene of turf wars between rival drug gangs. It's one of the regions with the most people who have disappeared. In addition, nearly 450,000 people have been murdered across the country since 2006. Mexico's forensic system is overwhelmed and tens of thousands of unidentified bodies lie unclaimed in morgues or mass graves. Rosel Feria for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Meanwhile, emergency crews are containing wildfires burning across Veracruz, Mexico. Mexico's civil protection authorities reported 5 active fires in the high mountains and Perote Valley areas. Reports as of late March 24 show the fire was around 45 hectares in size and around 40% contained. There have been no confirmed reports of evacuations or road closures in the area. Local officials, however, warned of possible power outages if the blaze damaged power infrastructure. Authorities may sever power lines as part of firefighting efforts.
In other news, the International Coordinating Group, or ICG, on vaccine provision says urgent action is needed to curb an unprecedented multi-year upsurge in cholera cases across the globe. Carlo Valdez reports.
Cholera has been surging globally since 2021. In 2022, 473,000 cases have been reported to WHO, doubling those reported in 2021. Last year, preliminary data revealed further increases with over 700,000 cases reported. Several of the outbreaks have high case fatality rates. These alarming trends are tragic given that cholera is a preventable and treatable disease. Cholera is an acute intestinal infection that spreads through food and water, contaminated with feces containing the bacterium Vibrio cholerae. The rise in cholera cases is due to persistent gaps in access to safe water and sanitation. The ICG calls on currently and potentially affected countries to take urgent steps in making clean water, hygiene, and sanitation services and the information critical to prevent cholera spread accessible to their populations. It also appeals to vaccine manufacturers, governments, donors, and partners to prioritize an urgent scale-up of vaccine production. At present, the most severely impacted countries include the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ethiopia, Haiti, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Carlo Valdez, Union, New Jersey, for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In other news, Russia's Soyuz MS-25 spacecraft has successfully docked to the International Space Station. The capsule arrived at the space station Monday, 4 days after its launch had been delayed due to a technical issue. Rose Papangelis has the details.
On board Soyuz MS-25 is Belarus's first female cosmonaut, Marina Vasilevskaya, Russian cosmonaut Oleg Novitsky, and U.S. astronaut Tracy Dyson. They blasted off Saturday for the 2-day journey to the orbiting space lab. Novitsky and Vasilevskaya will spend 14 days in orbit, returning home aboard the Soyuz MS-24 spacecraft with U.S. astronaut Laurel O'Hara. Dyson will spend 184 days in space. MS-25's takeoff was aborted seconds before launch on Thursday, raising further questions about the reliability of Russia's beleaguered space program. Once a spacefaring pioneer, Moscow has faced multiple setbacks since the collapse of the USSR. Failures include the loss of 2 Mars mission and its first lunar probe in almost 50 years last August. Space is one of the final areas of the U.S.-Russia cooperation amid an almost complete breakdown in relations between Moscow and Washington over the last 2 years. For almost a decade, Russian Soyuz launches have been the only way to ferry astronauts between Earth and the space station after NASA halted its space shuttle program. But the United States has now moved to using privately built SpaceX rockets and capsules, ending Russia's monopoly on manned launches. Rose Papangelis for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Internet users in the Philippines can no longer access the website of cryptocurrency firm Binance. This is after the National Telecommunications Commission, or NTC, issued an order directing all internet service providers to immediately block access to the website of Binance. The NTC issued the order following the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC's letter request seeking NTC's assistance in having Binance's website blocked. The SEC said that Binance offered an investment and trading platform without the necessary license from the Commission. The SEC concluded that the public's continued access to these websites or apps poses a threat to the security of the funds of investing Filipinos. Binance is a company that operates the largest cryptocurrency exchange. It was founded in 2017 by Chanpeng Zhao. Last year, Zhao resigned as Binance's CEO and pleaded guilty to a money laundering charge in the United States. Coming right up, pets walk the runway in a Shanghai fashion show. A former Chinese sports authority gets life in prison. And Homeland Security raids Sean Diddy Combs' properties. Catch more news in sports and entertainment when we return.
Dear Bossling, good day. My name is...
Wow, Ma'am Katia, ang dami mo naman gift. Ma'am Osa, look, ang galante talaga ni Aubrey. Regalo to sa akin ng mga bata, ng mga estudyante ko. Wow. Pati alumni, binigyan ako ng gift. Wow, ang galing-galing. I'm so proud of you. Wow, wala ka yan.
Ganyan eh, ganyan-ganyan ng mga inggitero at inggitera eh.
Love, Bossling, and Tali. Tuwing linggo, alas 6 ng gabi dito lang sa Net 25.
Let's net together sa Net 25. Together sa Net 25. Sa Net 25.
Groups of adorable pet cats and dogs sport their miniature garments as they walk along with their owners on the runway at the Shanghai Fashion Center. Dubbed 2024 Shanghai Pet Joy Fashion Week, the three-day event covers runway shows, fashion trend exhibits, and forums for animal lovers. Event organizers said about 20 pet brands attended the fashion event to launch their new collections. This year's Fashion Week focuses more on owners shifting to pet accessories, accommodation, and travel.
很多的狗友会愿意把小狗作为宠物的一部或宠物作为家庭的一部分，然后他们的消费其实是跟孩子是一样考虑，就是只要是对孩子好的，是可以考虑直接购入，而不是从费用方面去考虑。
For the first time in over a decade, Paris revived a tradition of having an annual race for cafe and restaurant waiters.
Bonne chose, c'était vraiment hyper sympa parce qu'il y avait énormément de monde sur le parcours. Et voilà, bon, j'avais jamais fait une course avec un plateau, avec une tasse à café, un verre d'eau plein et un croissant. Et voilà, c'était très festif. Et puis c'était pour mettre en avant vraiment aussi voilà, ce qui fait l'ADN, la culture de Paris. Et c'est une course qui s'était fait depuis 20 ans. Et on est très très content que ça puisse revenir en plein Paris. On a eu la chance.
About 200 men and women swerved, josted, and jogged for about 2 kilometers across city streets with trays carrying a croissant, a glass of tap water, and a small coffee cup. The rules are simple: no running, and you must reach the finish line with your tray still intact. The race, which was first held in the early 20th century, had been on hiatus since 2012 because of a lack of funding. But Paris officials saw an opportunity for the city to shine before hosting the Summer Olympics. It was also a moment to illustrate that sipping coffee at a cafe or dining in a bistro was an integral part of the capital's cultural heritage and the French approach to life as its most famous landmarks. Paris is home to more than 15,000 bars, cafes, and restaurants last year, according to city statistics. fueling a lively, laid-back, and wellness-centered culture that has held strong despite the pandemic, inflation, and worker shortages. Cameras and onlookers converged on number 207, representing Les Deux Magots, the iconic cafe frequented by intellectuals and writers like Simone de Beauvoir and James Baldwin, and number 182, representing La Tour d'Argent, a renowned restaurant with stunning views of the River Seine.
Non, non. On fait ça pendant 12 heures, 10-12 heures au quotidien. Alors là, il n'y a pas de souffrance que c'est nouveau, c'est une course, il y a tous les gens du métier, il y a vous les caméras, tout ça. C'est ce qui fait le moment un peu particulier, quoi. Mais non, c'est bien, ça fédère autour du métier. Et on l'a vu depuis la reprise du Covid, le Parisien et même la France entière, elle aime bien ces garçons de café. Voilà, la France des bistrots.
Allez, on va pouvoir taper les mains tout le monde. Pour souligner ce beau succès, vous avez couru des...
Chen Shu-yan, the former president of the Chinese Football Association, has been sentenced to life in prison for bribery. Court documents showed Chen accepted bribes worth $11 million from 2010 to 2023. Chen's illegal activities began when he was the president and chairman of Shanghai International Port Group. Prosecutors said Chen accepted money and valuables in exchange for his help with obtaining project contracts and arranging sporting events. The court ruled that the bribes were particularly huge and Chen's actions seriously damaged fair competition and order. State media added that 3 other senior football officials were sentenced to between 8 and 14 years in prison for corruption. Separately, China released Son Jun-ho, a former member of the South Korean national men's football team. He was a midfielder who played for Shandong Taishan FC in the Chinese Super League. Son had been held in detention for nearly a year on allegations of taking bribes.
Homeland Security raided properties owned by Sean Diddy Combs in Miami and Los Angeles, California, as part of an ongoing investigation in sex trafficking, sexual assault, and distribution of illegal narcotics allegations. In a statement, a Homeland Security spokesperson confirmed, and I quote, earlier Homeland Security investigations in New York executed law enforcement actions as part of an ongoing investigation with assistance from HSI Los Angeles, HSI Miami, and our local law enforcement partners. The American rapper has faced a number of lawsuits relating to sexual crimes, one of which is from his previous partner, Cassie Ventura, where she claimed that Combs have trafficked, raped, and beaten her up in their relationship, describing him as a serial domestic abuser. Another lawsuit alleging that Combs and 2 others had gang raped a 17-year-old in 2003 was filed in December of 2023 from a plaintiff identified as Jane Doe, accusing Combs of plying her with alcohol and drugs in his New York studio after she was flown by a private jet from her home. In a statement, Douglas Wigder, a lawyer for Cassie and Jane Doe, responded to the issue saying, and I quote, "We will always support law enforcement when it seeks to prosecute those who have violated the law. Hopefully, this is the beginning of a process that will hold Mr. Combs responsible for his depraved conduct." It's Tuesday, and to send you off tonight, here's a quote from Chinese fashion model Lu Wen. Being in this position enables myself and others to deliver messages of positivity. We can broadcast to everyone just how beautiful this world is and all the ways we can keep it beautiful by treating one another with kindness.
And in reality, you don't need fame and fortune to have that influence. You can have that influence among your peers just as long as you start having those conversations.
Yeah, you can just be one of the billions of people on earth and still make a big difference by being kind to those around you.
Very true.
For those still on the road right now, please don't fail to tune in to Agila FM 95.5.
You can also catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Thank you for choosing Mata ng Agila International, your trusted news source, connecting you to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.